Hello gang, and here we are again at Walford Road Cemetery on the outskirts of the city of Leicester. And as you know guys, this cemetery was opened in 1849 and we did a recent video on Thomas Cook here. So we're here again. I think it's a really fascinating cemetery. If you just look at some of the masonry work on these graves, it's absolutely incredible. So I'm going to be spending quite a lot of time here because there's so many interesting stories as well. So I just want to obviously capture the mood. It's a very cold and indeed foggy day in January of 2022. So guys, we've got a really interesting story for you today. Absolutely tragic story. And it happened about 2 miles away from where I'm currently standing. So just look at this here guys, it's incredible. Look at that. Graves are fascinating. So for today's story then guys, we need to cast our minds back to a moment in time on the 9th of September 1926. It was meant to be a fun day out for the family and the children, everybody dressed in their finest regalia, looking forward to the day's events. There will be over 40,000 people in attendance when this tragic incident occurred, and it's just heartrending. And those people who witnessed it, it will remain firmly etched on their minds for the rest of their lives. So guys, let's get into it then. So the incident, as I say, took place at the Royal Showground, which is on Blackbird Road in the city of Leicester, about 2 miles from where we are currently. And it concerned a lady by the name of Dot Cain. So who was Dot Cain? Well, Dot Cain was the daughter of the people who actually owned the Empire Hotel, which was on Foss Road North in the city of Leicester. And the Royal Showground that day, they were undertaking, there was a Captain Frank Muir who was undertaking exhibition flights, and indeed he invited anybody who wanted to undertake a parachute jump to do so. So they would join him in the cockpit and then obviously jump out of the plane. Now Captain Frank Muir was a seasoned pilot. He made the first solo flight from England to Sweden. And conveniently enough, he was staying at the Empire Hotel whilst he was undertaking these exhibition flights and parachute jumps for any willing participants. So, Dot Cain then, obviously she worked at the hotel that Frank was staying at, and she very quickly tried to ingratiate herself with him so he would pick her out to undertake the parachute jump that she was so very excited about. The day of the parachute jump itself could not come soon enough for Dot. She'd been waiting in excited anticipation at the thought of climbing into the clouds with the seasoned pilot Captain Frank Muir and jumping out of the plane at 1,000 feet. Her first parachute jump, and she was absolutely elated to be doing it. So the actual jump itself took place at the Blackbird Road Stadium. And keen onlookers included a crowd of 40,000 people, and amongst those gathered were Dot's parents and husband, who in turn gathered at Abbey Park where they could witness this great event taking place. And on the day in question, Dot was dressed in ordinary clothes and wore a clock hat, which is a bell-shaped hat that women wore at the time and was considered to be quite fashionable. So once all the requisite checks had been made to the aircraft and to the actual parachute itself that Dot will be using, ironically called the Guardian Angel, it was the 9th of September 1926. So when the plane had ascended to 1,000 feet, Dot climbed out of the cockpit and onto the wing. She then subsequently jumped, and the actual parachute itself became entangled on the undercarriage of the aircraft, and Dot sadly slipped out of the parachute. And the sight of Dot falling over 1,000 feet was so heart-wrenching that spectators rushed in all directions. And one onlooker described, I quote, as Dot's body turning several somersaults in the air and bouncing 6 feet when her body hit the ground, eventually landing in a hedge. Her husband and her father-in-law, Arthur Richard Cain, were in a complete state of shock and were the first ones to reach her body. Now, at the actual inquest itself, Captain Frank Muir was found not to be culpable on any level, because it was considered that he'd undertaken all the requisite protocols and checks on the safety of the aircraft and indeed the parachute itself, and he was thus exonerated on every level. So we're just coming up to Dot Cain's grave now. There are also some family members obviously buried with her. I think one is a sister and I think the other one's her mother. I couldn't find any sort of history or family lineage, guys, so if anyone wants to comment in the comments box and just explain to me who the individuals were. So this is the final resting place of Dot Cain, who sadly perished on the 9th of September 1926 at the tender age of 25 years old, a young married woman with everything to live for. It was an absolute tragedy what happened to her. So as you can see, guys, if I just kind of pan out a bit, the site really is, this cemetery really is at capacity, so I'm just conscious of not standing on any graves. And what I want to do is, I'm going to go to the top stone, because that's where all the inscriptions are, is on the outside. So I'm going to zoom in so we can actually read what that says, guys, okay? So it says, "And Gwendolyn Vera Cain." And it says, who died September 2nd, 1954, aged 44 years. Ever remembers. And this, guys, is Dot, and she's on the outside stone here. So we're going to read that. It says, "In loving memory of Dorothy Evelyn Cain, died September 9th, 1926, aged just 25 years. That's so sad. Someday we'll understand." Oh, that's tragic. And what I'm going to do, guys, is to go round the other side, because I think there's some writing on there as well. So let's have a look here. Let's have a look. So it's also Selena Cain, and that says who died. So what's that say, guys? Is it the 25th? Let's just zoom in a bit if I can. 25th of July 1950, aged 71 years, at rest. And I think we've got Arthur up there, guys. Arthur, is it? I can't read that. Arthur Richard Cain, who died 30th December 1952, aged 88 years, reunited.